Hi, welcome to the BariNation podcast, where we support the bariatric community with humor, humility, and honesty. My name is Jason.
I'm Natalie.
And today we've got Christopher with us. Christopher Baker is a member of our community, has done some amazing things, and today we're going to talk to him about body positivity and just a few other things.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey, yeah, you bet. Hey, everybody. My name's Chris. It actually ain't Christopher. So you can just call me Chris. My name is Chris Baker. I'm here in Austin. I'm the founder and executive director of a housing and homelessness advocacy and service group called the Other Ones Foundation. Found these guys by way of another piece of my identity, which is a feature on season 6 of Queer Eye, episode 8, Gimme Shelter. And I'm really excited to be here and talk about this stuff.
We're so excited to have you. I watched that season. I remember watching that episode and just being like, oh, a bariatric patient being highlighted, for all of the world to see, and sent you a message. Had been some time, which is totally fine. And then we kind of reconnected again. So I'm really glad that we could, get you on the podcast and chat and kind of talk about the men's perspective of bariatric surgery and body positivity, body image, and all of that, because it's a huge piece that really does not get talked about. Thankfully, we have Jason on our podcast to kind of highlight that, but I'm really excited to dive even farther into this and hear from both of you guys. So I'm excited to get started. Are you guys ready?
Yes,
yeah, ready.
All right. So Chris, I just am curious how maybe you battled or struggled with body image, before surgery, and, kind of comparing, is it different now or is it fairly similar? How has that journey been for you?
Well, hold on. I just had a dog thing.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Dogs happen,
We have dog there's all the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a good question, and there's kind of a lot to unpack with that question. I will say this, going into kind of like that series of decisions that lead somebody to going and getting this procedure, part of that for me wasn't really about body image so much as it was about like health and like quality of life. And it wasn't really until after the surgery that I was able to sort of confront some of the like really serious sort of like body image and body shame issues that I didn't even really realize I was experiencing. And as a guy, it's not really something that we talk about much, or we try to really allow ourselves to sort of embrace or try to like be okay with correcting. So like, I was very sort of adamant going into the process that like, this is just about health. This is about quality of life. And those things are very true. Like, don't get me wrong. Those are like very true, but it was actually, I hesitate to talk too much about this, but it actually was sort of the Queer Eye thing like that really helped me work through some of that stuff and realizing that like I spent all of my time, I spent like all of my physical space trying to make myself look smaller all the time, trying to like sit in ways that I would look smaller and trying to like take up as little space in a room as I can, or like not, sort of walk the long way around instead of trying to like walk between people. And it was actually Tan who like started pointing that out to me, and like not even on camera, like he was so cool, and like he would point these things out to me, and a little of it made it into the show, but very little of it. But he kept pointing it out to me and saying like, dude, you are like a normal, I mean, at the time I was still very overweight, but like he was like, dude, you're like a normal sized guy. And he said something to me that I hadn't thought about, which was that like sometimes people will have, like when people lose a lot of weight, they have like this phantom weight that's still there. Like there's like the like if somebody gets an arm cut off, like sometimes their brain is still telling them that they've got an arm there, so they call it like a phantom limb. And the same thing can happen like with our bodies. And so it wasn't really until he started pointing some of that stuff out and I started noticing those behaviors that I'm doing all the time, and like all this sort of shame. And I'll tell you this, and I mean, you know, I'll just dive right in with it. Like I didn't take my shirt off in front of my wife even for years. And after we got done shooting, that day that it was over, because like you get sequestered, you know, like you're not allowed to see your family for like a week or whatever. And so like that day we got back, and the first thing that I did, like when all like everyone went away and like it was like all the cameras and all the crew and cast all left, the first thing I did was I went into our room and I just took my shirt off, and I was like, it's totally okay. And my wife, who's like never had any like body image issues or like any weight issues or anything, was just like, yeah. So, you know, and then now, you know, it's like, I have this like weird relationship with, you know, I work in a field that like serves marginalized people, and I like have that in my mind at all times. And it didn't really become clear to me as like a long time fat person, and then, you know, becoming a thin person, it never really occurred to me that like fat people kind of are like a marginalized group in a way. And I'm noticing that there is like privilege that I experience now that I didn't before. And look, I'll just say it all, like I'm a white cisgender male, like not complaining. You know, I've got all the privilege in the world. I've now got more, and noticing that has been a little bit of a struggle, honestly. And so I have, you know, there was one point that like I was feeling really good about my body. I had been going to the gym a lot and I was feeling great. And I like took a picture and put it on Instagram of me without a shirt on. And like, yeah, I've got like some loose skin or whatever, but like I was feeling really good about it. And I was contacted by some people that were kind of like, that's kind of fucked up, dude. Like maybe think a little bit about that, because maybe maybe that doesn't make everybody feel great. And so that is when that's kind of why when you asked about some of the things that I'm passionate about, that I was interested in talking about sort of just like the general body positivity community and like navigating that and kind of trying to find, I don't know, my space in that.
Well, and the crazy part about that is men are like, I know for like a lot of myself, like I know a lot of guys that I grew up with, we're taught that vanity is not something men subscribe to. Like we don't fall into that kind of thing. So wanting to do anything body positivity or feeling good about yourself in that way is not something that's celebrated for men, unless you want to, you know, be vain, you know, called vain or whatever else, so you care too much. But, you know, the fact of like what you said, of people contacting you saying that they weren't, you know, very amused with the picture that you were taking or posting, it, you know, confidence is going to look different for a lot of different people. Just because, yeah, and you can't tell somebody else how to feel confident or how to celebrate everything that they've been through. So we had a similar situation whenever we did a big bariatric retreat in Orlando, and we had a pool day. And there was another man in the community, his name is Dalton, and he's lost significant, almost 300 pounds. And he has a lot of loose skin, and he rocks no shirt all the time. And he was in the pool. And no, I haven't told anybody this, and it was something that only I picked up on that day in the pool. I watched a guy walk by, an older man. He looked down and was like, fucking disgusting. And I turned to him, and it took everything in me not to bounce out of the pool and run up on dude and tell him all about himself. But I was, you know, it was kind of a professional setting, and I wasn't going to do that and ruin everybody else's time. But it was so aggravating to see somebody from the outside judge somebody so hard, because they would have said this, like in my mind, he would have said the same thing if my man was still 500 pounds. If he was 500 pounds without a shirt on, dude still would have talked shit. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm like, at what point is it okay for somebody to celebrate how they're living and you stay the hell out of it? Why is it everybody else's? Do they feel like it's their position to be able to say something about how somebody else is living?
Yeah, amen. And I like, that's kind of where I landed on this thing too, which, you know, was that I have no like interest in like further marginalizing anyone, you know what I mean? But like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I'm like, that is cool, man. Like, I went from not being able to like take my shirt off in front of my wife to being cool doing it. You know, I have I don't know, like 6,000 or 7,000 Instagram followers. Like, that's not like a lot of people. And that to me is like, is about me, you know. It's not like, and it's about me, and it's about what I get comfortable with. It's not about trying to put anybody else down. And, you know, but like having kind of like gotten that reaction was just like, it was really startling to me, you know, like, you know, me sort of feeling good about myself and feeling, you know, comfortable sharing that. It's just, it's not an affront, you know, against anybody else. And, you know, and it's not, and, you know, I guess like sort of the underlying sort of sentiment behind sort of some of the feedback I got was that by celebrating the fact that I've been able to get to this point in my journey, that it's somehow saying that the person or the body that was in before wasn't beautiful or wasn't, and you know, and this is a thing that I come across a lot. Like, I will occasionally, and I used to do it more, I do it much less now, but occasionally do like post on social media, like the before and after stuff, you know, and I get like often from people saying like, oh, well, you were perfectly okay before. Or like both of those people are beautiful. And I'm like, let me, you're just the same, you're the same person. And I'm like, fuck it. No, I am not. And I'm glad that I'm not.
Yeah.
Because 3 years ago, I was an alcoholic. I was drunk all the time. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without having to stop to catch my breath. I like had no, I mean, I could put on an air of self-confidence, I think, but I for as big as I was, I felt like the smallest person in the room all the time. And I was pre-diabetic, and you know, like for all of these reasons. I mean, just like the like sort of, well, before I go there, I'll just say that like I'm glad that like it's just my quality of life is so much better. And because my quality of life is better, I'm less anxious, I sleep better, and I'm generally just like a happier person playing with my kids. It's just everything is so much easier. And because everything's easier, I'm so much happier. And because I don't have to be I'm not getting sick each and every single month. Like I was like 2 or 3 times a month, I would have to stay home from work from catching something or being sick. And that's just like not how my life works anymore. And I'm like, that's fucking great. Like, I'm stoked not to be the same person. I appreciate the sentiment. This is not a thing where it's like, you know, that it's not like to suggest that like thin people are somehow better or more valuable than fat people is fucking ridiculous. And I think everybody can agree on that. But I think of it as like a sort of outward manifestation of like a series of life changes that needed to happen for me to like live the best life and like perform the best that I can for like my family and for my work and all the rest of it.
And for yourself. I mean, and that's another thing. We have a friend, her name is Maddie, and she spoke at an event last year about honoring your before self, and saying, you know, look, I made this huge life change. I look different now. I feel different because I've also done work on myself mentally and physically. That person before is not bad. That person before was unhealthy and probably not super happy, but they were not bad, and they still got us to the point we are at now. And also there's a lot in between that happens between the two pictures. It's not just oh, okay, we're here now, this is life, like it happened, ta-da, like I'm here now. No, that little tiny white line, an entire lifetime happened. Like you said, you know, you can run up the stairs now, you can play with your kids, you've got your alcoholism under control. Like all of those things happened between the two photos, and that's what society doesn't even look at.
Well, and when the people talk about, how you were before, like they'll look at the before pictures and they always have something to say. What they don't realize is that we, as former bigger people, can tell you everything about what was going on in those pictures, because there are so few of them that I can tell you exactly at my heaviest picture what I felt like that day, what was going on that day, how my knees felt, how my feet felt. Was there a place for my ass to sit? No, probably not. How out of breath was I? Like all of those things come into play every time somebody comments like, oh, well, you look happy there. I look happy there. That's the key word. I can look happy as shit for 10 seconds while I'm taking a picture, but that doesn't mean I felt happy. You're muted, Chris.
That's so funny that you say that, because I try to go and find like, before pictures for those things. It's like, why are there no pictures of me? Why wasn't? Because I was always the guy that said, let me take it. I'll take it. I'll be the one to take it. And I remember one time like getting on one of the like, this was like kind of a major milestone in that early stages of change for me. Was I was getting on an airplane, and I was like almost 400 pounds, and I had my son was just recently born, and he was like a baby. And so like here I'm like carrying a baby, and I'm like getting on an airplane, and I'm like this big huge guy, and I've got this baby, and I'm like, and I was just me and the kid traveling, and like I'm going and I'm like walking down the plane, and I just look into the row, and I see this woman look up at me, and I can just see her face go like, and I don't blame her, like nobody wants to be in that position, right? But I can see in her face, it's like, oh my God, this guy, and he has a baby, and so I mean, I don't know.
It doesn't get much worse than that. That's like the the duality of the worst person flying ever is the bit. Because I mean, that's the thing. Like I'm 6'4". Even today, I'm 6'4" and weigh 320 pounds. So I'm still not any fun to sit next to on a plane. But like at my heaviest, I flew at 468 pounds at 6'4". So I look like somebody's escaped gorilla that they sat in the front seat of the plane. I took over the whole seat, top down, like all from the top, the sides, all of it. So I know exactly
I drove,
where
man.
you're coming from. Yeah.
I drove. I swear, dude, like my family would go on a vacation, they would all fly, and I would drive. And I would have to like take 2 extra days or whatever it is. Like we live in Texas, we're from New York. I've made that drive like in the course of that few years after that experience getting on that plane, I must have made that drive 6 or 7 times. That's like a 25-hour drive. And I would just like drink coffee and all the rest of it. But I want to say this too, because one of the things that like I loved about when I got that original message about doing this, which by the way, Natalie, I'm sorry, when Queer Eye first came out, dude, I got like deluge of messages from people from all over the world, and I tried my best to keep up, but one of the things that
Oh.
one of the things I liked that you mentioned about it was kind of like breaking down some of that stigma. And I'll tell you this, part of my journey was like, I was, you know, I'm like substance use disorder is like a big part of my history. And, you know, I'll tell you this, like, at first, like the bariatric surgery did not help. Like it got like I was like, there was a period of time there that I was losing weight, man. I was losing it fast, but I was still very sick. And you know, I went you know, post surgery, and I had like kind of been in and out of like, you know, whatever 12-step programs and stuff. And then after surgery, I went and I'll just say it like this. It's very common. It happens. I fell into some like very heavy drinking post surgery. And I went and did a stint in a treatment facility, came out, and I've been sober since. But I have never, I'm very open about this stuff, and I have never, ever, ever, ever had someone say or look at me funny because I decided to have a medical intervention to deal with a substance use disorder. But when it comes to this other disorder that I had that I chose a medical intervention to treat, it's a little bit of a different thing.
Oh yeah.
When, you know, when people start, you've had those conversations with people who don't know, and they somehow it comes up, or they've seen you before or something, and they go, well, how'd you lose all the weight? And you go, I had a gastric sleeve or whatever, you know, whatever procedure you had. And you see them go like, you know, like you're hoping that you're gonna give them the secret, like, oh, I just cut out carbs, or you know, whatever fucking 100,000 things I tried and wasn't able to do, you know, prior to getting it. But it's like, it's just, you know, it's one of those things that, like, if there was a surgery that could treat alcoholism, the fucking line would be around the neighborhood, and nobody would think twice about getting a medical intervention to treat that issue, you know?
No, it's like telling somebody that they shouldn't have a knee replacement or a hip replacement. Tell Grandpa Jim to walk it off. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Just walk it off. Rub some dirt off. You'll be fine. Like, it's the fact that people give, like, you wouldn't tell somebody to not take insulin for their diabetes, or not have a heart valve replaced. Like, the fact that people can't figure out that it's this, that, you know, that obesity is a metabolic disease that has to have, you know, that requires lifelong care and cure, is just, it's fascinating.
And we just released an episode actually about our theme for the month of February is surgery will not be enough. You know, that it is not the only treatment for obesity. There's all these other, you know, eating a nutrient dense diet, getting that resistance movement, you know, working on your mindset. All of that is an adjunct treatment to this disease and this other treatment, this core treatment. But we just talked to Dr. Eric Smith, and he put it this way. He compared, you know, the disease of obesity and cancer. When we hear the word cancer, we immediately go, what treatment do you need? You know, what things can we help you with? You know, all the medical world is just like, cancer is so horrible. Let's help you. Let's treat you. When we say, I have obesity, it's, oh, well, you could eat less, move more, you know, this is your fault, all of this stuff, right? But if we treat them the same way, if we say, hey, obesity is just as you know, kills as many people, or like, I don't know if it is as many people, I'm not going to say that, but kills a lot of people, you know, the disease of obesity. We don't treat it with the same urgency as we do with cancer, or alcoholism, right? There's so many centers for alcoholism and drug abuse and all of that. Obesity just isn't treated the same.
And I think that's something that's true about a lot of these conditions that are sort of like behavioral in nature. Um, is that it's always some sort of like underlying something that needs to get worked out. And that for me was the big eye opener. I mean, and I'm sure this is going to sound very cliche, but like coming out of surgery in this like sort of being forced in a way to to develop new habits, and like, I mean, our brains are very pliable, like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like neuroplasticity, but like the way that your brain and your brain chemicals, these various neurotransmitters like work on like these reward systems, right? And so whereas like at one time you got your happy chemicals, your serotonin and whatever, like from doing things like binge eating or more sort of like sedentary activities, you sort of slowly begin to train your brain to get those rewards elsewhere. Unfortunately, and this happened to me, and I think it happens to a lot of people, I think sometimes people, that's why I think it's so common that people wind up with addiction issues post surgery. And for me, that came into play. But then, kind of dealing with one problem at a time, I've now have gotten to a place in my life where, the things that have sort of set off the happy chemicals in my brain are things like skateboarding and playing music and hiking and exercise. And like those are, I'm like, my body, like my brain is telling me, like, basically sending my body the same signals that like a triple meat Whataburger with a shake and fries used to send, and that's a beautiful thing that requires effort on our part to embrace. But and so kind of like to say that surgery is not the only thing. The surgery helps to sort of force that a little bit, and we've got to kind of embrace it. And I think that like most of us that engage in any sort of like disordered eating behaviors are probably like living with some underlying unaddressed mental health thing that for a lot of us, like for me, relatively easy to treat, man. Like I am very fortunate. For me, I go to therapy once a week and I try to maintain healthy relationships, try to get a little sunlight in my eyes every day, and I'm good. I know for some people, those brain reward systems and those neurotransmitters aren't exactly working correctly. And that's a different thing. Again, going back to like, now there's a medical intervention that we need to talk about. You know what I mean? And so like, if that means, antidepressants or something for some folks, which I've been down that road before in other parts of my life, but like, again, like there's no shame in that, but it's not ever going to be the only thing. Like any of these behavioral sort of health things, the medical intervention is almost always the tip of the iceberg. If it's alcoholism, like, yeah, detox requires a medical intervention, but there's a lot of work you need to do on yourself in order to make that shit stick. Same thing with the bariatric surgery, same thing with like antidepressants or any kind of like behavioral health stuff. So.
Yeah, well, and the thing, the thing like what you were talking about when it comes to retraining your brain for those things, it's very hard from the standpoint of we've never done it before. So our bodies don't know what it's weird for us to feel our body calling for movement because we're like, well, I used to like that shit. So I don't know that I want to do that. But your body lets you know and know in certain terms, like, well, we want to eat this instead of that. We want to move here where we didn't want to move before. It's not just about getting off work and going and sitting down and watching as much TV as you can and plowing through the snacks until they're gone. But it's crazy in a way that a lot of people, it's not that we reject it, it's just that we don't know how to accept it. And that's where I think people have a hard time.
Yeah, we talk a lot on the podcast in our membership community about head work. Head work is one of the key components of this surgery being successful, right? Like what you were saying, we have to retrain the way our brain and body work because it's been working one way for X amount of years. That we talk about like highways, right? Like that's like a 10-lane major highway that our brain has built to the dopamine. Like we know that it works. We can get there at 60 miles an hour. We know how to do that. But as we have surgery and we're working on our habits and retraining, I mean, we're building roads in the jungle. We got to like get all the vines out. We got to build the roads. We got to do all of that. But eventually, right, it leads us to this place of it's fairly automated. You know, we like don't have to think about it as much. We have more confidence in ourselves because we know that we can do this without thinking as much. There's a lot of things that come with building those habits and retraining our brain. Yeah. One question I did want to ask, because I am not a male person, so I'm just curious about what you both think contributes to some of the stigmas in with men in the community about losing weight, or you know, whether or not to beef up and go like do all the bodybuilding, or like where do you think that stems from, or how is that, like, how have you interacted with that? I'm just curious to hear both of your thoughts.
Chris, why don't you go first? You can unmute.
Chris, you're muted.
Sorry, I've been like taking a sip of my drink, and I don't want to give, like, I'm wearing these headphones. I don't want to give you like that whatever time I take a sip of my drink. I think it's interesting that, like, you know, the only place that we really see men talking about their bodies is kind of like in the bodybuilding community. Like, you don't really hear guys talking about their physique outside of that community, and I think it's great. Like, I think a lot of those guys are you know, out there, you know, living their best lives and trying to get people moving, trying to get people healthy, giving people a lot of really good tips about ways to build muscle. And, you know, having, you know, more muscle is good. Having more muscle and less fat is good. It's good for your body. And there's no doubt about that. But the problem is that there is not number of who have the type of success that a lot of these guys have without some sort of drug cycle is very, very, very low. And there are a lot of very naturally strong guys out there who, you know, do it right. And look, I'm not even necessarily saying that there's anything wrong with you know, have like introducing drug cycles into your workout habit. Not something I would choose to do. You know, not something I would like hope that my like kids or people who I care about would choose to do. But I do recognize that, like, in certain circumstances, you know, in supervised settings, like, it's not necessarily always as bad as we once thought it was. But there is, you know, like, you see in the media a lot, like these actors who will go and get like super cut and get like super big, like super fast, and they're all taking steroids. And like the idea that they're not is like fucking stupid. And you've got like, like there's this one big content creator who was like huge beefy guy who was like, I live off the land. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this guy, the Liver King guy. Like, he's like, oh yeah, I live by these ancestral tenets. I sleep on a fucking hardwood floor and I work really hard and I eat liver. And so I'm big and beefy like this. And of course, like, and anybody who knows anything about that world is like, why are you even fucking pretending? And I think even some people who know about this world were like, oh my God, is this guy really onto something? And then of course it comes out that, he's got, what he's doing is that he's gone on a major steroid cycle. And so we set these, like sort of unrealistic, body image, aesthetics out into the world. And we talk about that a lot for women, right? Like that's it's a big thing. That I don't know, it's a big thing, but we hear about it. It's talked about. It's accepted as sort of a societal issue, and it's not really in the same way for men. And so you have a lot of men out there who were choosing to express their gender identity in a pretty masculine way, and that's totally okay. Who get, I'll just put it like this: like how many times have you heard a comedian or something rag on a guy for like eating kale, or whatever, or doing cardio instead of lifting weights, or this guy's a sissy because he doesn't drinks Diet Coke, like, or instead of the full octane stuff. And just look at some of like the popular media like couples, Marge and Homer Simpson, right? Like, or the other the Family Guy, I don't know, Lois and Peter, or the king of what I remember all these, but you see that, king, like you see that all the time, and you see that like the guy is like a big rotund fella, and that's like totally okay. And then you've got like the little petite woman, and this. I would look at that sometimes when I was out with my wife at places. I'd be like, we're like Peter and Lois, or I'd think like everybody's looking at us and being like, that guy must be very wealthy. But there's a perceived like masculine quality to not giving a shit about your body.
Yeah, it's very strange in a way, like what you were saying. That King of Queens is one of the I was actually going to bring up, because guys, if it's the big guy that has the hot wife, he's dopey and kind of goofy, and it's kind of that shit. Or you got the other opposite end of the spectrum where everybody has to look like Chris Hemsworth. I've got to look like Thor or Jason Momoa if anybody's going to look twice at me. And if it's a print ad, it's the same way, like Abercrombie and everybody all having washboard abs and all that stuff. What people don't realize is it's the same thing, when they talk about females and the female body, like real women have stretch marks, real women have cellulite, real bodies look way different than the print ads. They're not airbrushed, they're not touched up, and men are the same damn way. That's like when the dad bod craze started and everybody's like, oh, it's cool, that's your 20, 30 pounds. I'm like, people look like there's some, and people, like girls were actually getting shit for them saying that out loud. Like, I like a beefy dude. It's wintertime. I got to get me a big dude so they're comfy. And like, I don't want to lay on a pile of rocks. Like, I want a comfy chubby dude. And people actually were getting talked bad about in comments for that stuff on social media. And I'm like, people like what people like. Like, bodies are going to be different. If we all look the same, how fucking boring would that be? Like, just let people like what the hell they like and go on about their business. If somebody's confident to walk around at 350 pounds without a shirt on, high fucking five to that guy or that female. If she wants to wear a bikini, like, have at it. Like, I don't give a shit. People give Lizzo a hard time because Lizzo's out there living her best life at her size. Guess what? If you're metabolically healthy at that weight, have a blast. I don't give a damn. Like, as long as you're healthy and can do it, do it. Like, I don't understand what the problem is.
Agreed.
I feel like we could
And
just there.
Right.
It's just you know, it's just interesting. It's a very interesting dichotomy. You know, the whole man woman thing. The like sort of I don't know. It's very puzzling. The idea that like somehow there is it's not like masculine to try to, you know, be a little healthier or whatever. And, you know, masculinity is just a weird thing. And it's, you know, and I think that like we have talk about masculinity sometimes in some circles as though like all sort of expression of masculinity is inherently toxic. And I think that like there is certainly, like, you will hear no argument for me that toxic masculinity is not a thing. It absolutely is. Toxic masculinity is absolutely a thing, and it's gross, and nobody wants to be around that, you know? Like, to my mind, the thing that like is the qualities that in a person that really scream masculinity are like vulnerability, honesty, caring, like being willing to show people love, like being able to show your male friends love, being able to show yourself love. Like those, that to me, like, and you know, I know that like it's a tightrope walk talking about gender expression for sure, but like to me, there's like nothing manlier than like telling people that you love them and that you care about them. And like, you know, those are all, you know, things that kind of go kind of right along with sort of having like a positive self-image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's one of the best things I've noticed as I get older and, you know, mortality plays into things. People start losing people that they love and care about. And, you know, you start losing people in your friend groups or things like that. You start realizing how all this shit we grew up hearing is just ridiculous. Like, if I can't tell my best friend that I love him, like no other, like I have a core group of friends that I've known for 20, you know, plus years. And we all say it. We all say it to each other, like no matter what happens, like if the last time we talked to each other, it's always said, because we now know how fragile life is and how important these connections are. And you don't ever want anybody that you really care about to go without thinking that, you know, doesn't exist. So seeing the fact that how those things change and the fact that, you know, it's kind of the same vein as mental health for men. You know, you're not supposed to you're not supposed to need help. We weren't supposed to need the surgery because that's asking somebody, like, you're supposed to just be able to push away from the table or just eat better, you know, work out. That would be fine. If you go to the gym with your buddies, you wouldn't be big. But, you know, asking for help, telling, you know, being able to sit back and have that tough conversation and say, I need help. Or if you're struggling mentally and say, shit, I got to reach out to somebody because I can't do this on my own, is something that we never were able to, that we weren't able to do. Like, it wasn't something I was brought up knowing that was okay. But I made sure to instill that in my son, who is now 20 years old. I let him all the time. We would have conversations like, oh, do you need to cry it out? Let's cry it out. Cry it out. Go ahead. Cry as long as you need to cry. No, I'm here for you while you're crying. I'm here when you're done. Let me know what you need, like whatever's going to make it better. So he knew it was okay to not only express emotion, but it was healthy to express emotion. And it didn't matter what that emotion was. So, giving the next generation the tools to be able to cope, and not only just the tools, but to be able to know when it's too much and to say, I need help. I gotta have help. That's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, you're totally speaking my language. That's so cool. I am a proud sayer of "I love you" to people all the time. I'm trying to do the same thing, but my son's 7, so it's easy with him. We'll see when he's like, when he's 15, if he's like, "Dad, stop being so silly all the time."
It was actually really cool. My son never did. My son never got he never got embarrassed by it. He was always like and I was worried that he was going to, because my girls did. My girls were like, "Yeah, that's cute." Like, no. So I would always be the dad that jumped out of the car when I dropped him off at high school and be like, "Make good choices, girls." Like all the funny shit, just get embarrassed the shit out of them. But my son never. He was always cool. Like, my son never did shy away from it, and I loved that.
That's great. Love that.
Oh.
It's like and the self-love sort of piece of it is really important too. And I think like that helps guide, we've all made a decision that, is in the best interest of like our health and well-being and quality of life. And I have, but like I'll give you an example. Like I was telling you guys before about like having put that like picture up on Instagram, and one of my Instagram followers said something along the lines of, the trick for you to really find happiness is to be able to love the person on the left of that photo. And I'm like, man, that is the like love for the person on the left of the photo is why the effort went into becoming the person in the right of the photo, and like, I love what you were saying before, Natalie, about like, sort of honoring the sort of other version of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important piece of it. And I mean, and I don't mean to dwell on it or anything, but it's the same thing like with me, and making sure that I'm, routinely staying connected to, the person that I am when I like am living in my substance use disorder. Like, I got to stay connected to that person, because, I want him to stay in the closet like forever. And, I think he will at this point, but I want to make sure that I know that he's there, and that I love that guy too. And so in order to show that guy the love that he needs, it's a real easy thing. I just don't go do those behaviors, and he'll stay in there. I'll be out here. Everything's going to be fucking A-okay.
Right. Because that guy in the closet knew that you were not well and got you to being well. Right. And that's the whole thing, is like, my pre-op self got me to have my surgery, got me to where I needed to be to change my life. Like, they're the people who did all the heavy lifting, because I'm here now.
Yeah. Oh, that's so, wow, what a great way to put it. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, and that's what Maddie, our friend, really got me to think about when I was listening to her speak, was like, I didn't do anything. That girl, that person, they did it. Like, they did the hard work. They made the phone call. They got me to the hospital. They got on the table. I'm reaping the benefits at this point. So why wouldn't I love that person that got me there?
Yeah. So what was your surgery experience like? I'm sure that you guys have like talked about this on the podcast before, so if you want to just blow over it, that's fine. I'm just curious.
Well, Jason and I have very different stories. I've actually had 3 bariatric surgeries.
Oh, wow.
I had my first 2 surgeries failed me medically. My first one, I had the lap band, and it did not work. It caused me some pretty hefty complications. But I was like 350 pounds by the age 15. Like I needed help. And at the time, lap band was kind of like what VSG or the sleeve is now. So lost a ton of weight, ended up having complications. And then I had, it's not very popular, but it's called a plication surgery. And it's really meant to kind of keep off the weight, or like if you only have like 20 to 40 pounds to lose, then you use that tool.
What does that do?
I call it like a pseudo sleeve. So it like they, instead of removing the stomach, they just kind of like sew it into that sleeve shape. So it's really based on restriction and not so much like hormones and getting, you know, really changing your anatomy. Felt no restriction. So I gained all my weight back and then some.
Oh, bummer.
Turns out, so I found my surgeon that I had my VSG with. He's in Mexico, so I had surgery in Mexico. So my experience is totally different than everyone.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, I got out of surgery and my surgeon's assistant said, "Did you know that your sutures had come undone?" No, I had no idea. So I had been living my life with a surgery that didn't even work, like wasn't even done properly, which it's taken me a long time, but I don't blame that surgeon. Things happen. It was one of those like fluke things that just so happened to happen to me. But it made a lot of sense. Like all the puzzle pieces started coming together, like, oh, okay, I didn't like fail. It was my surgery. It was like the surgery that had failed me. So yeah, I've lost 140 pounds since. I'm almost to my 2.5-year mark now. And then I met Jason and April, who is on vacation right now, so she couldn't join us, but yeah, that's my synopsis.
So you got it in Mexico. Did you, how long did you stay in the hospital for?
Hours. Like,
oh, word. Oh, okay.
I think I was out by 5 a.m. the next morning. So
oh, word.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was great. It was a fantastic experience. Shout out to Ariel Ortiz at OCC. He did a great job. His whole team is phenomenal. And I went back to like get checked and like make sure I was good before like coming back to the States and everything. But in total time in the hospital was less than 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah. Ariel Ortiz, he's pumping those sleeves out. Yeah, you go, boy.
Yeah, he's great.
I had quite a bit of a different experience. I was one of the people that I was lucky enough to not battle with weight issues all my life. I, as a child, kind of did the grow up and out kind of situation. So I would be big and then I would get tall and skinny. And so I realized that after I got married in 2001, I was like 225, kind of had a little bit of a pudge, but nothing crazy. And then come 2007, I gained 130 pounds in 7 months and realized that my thyroid had just stopped. Just had not been working, like nothing, like everything in my metabolically had gone haywire. And so after that 130 pound gain,
asleep.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, my thyroid was, I blew it out completely. They were like, yeah, there's zero function. I was like, oh, well, that's a problem. So we kind of go that route, and I just continued to gain. We couldn't get my thyroid under control with medication or any of that stuff. And then, by the point of 2019, I was at my highest weight of 468 pounds, having major blood pressure issues. Like highest recorded blood pressure for me was 217 over 179. Oh yeah, I drove myself to the ER because I told at work, I was like, I'm not really feeling too hot. I was like, I probably better go get this checked out. And they took my pressure. They were like, how did you get here? I was like, I drove. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like in a car, like drove. And they were like, how about you lay down before you fall down? And I was like, I actually feel okay. I was like, I'm just kind of a little lightheaded. And they were like, yeah, it's because you have no blood left. It's all flowing through your veins at high speed. So dealing with those types of things. And I realized that I was no longer medically, metabolically to a point that medication was going to help me not die. And my primary care doctor looked at me in my face because she knew that I just had grandbabies. And she was like, at 44 years old, you're actively dying. Like, you're not going to make it. Like, this is not something you're going to live through. And that to me was the wake up call. Like, I've told the story before. My son, who I just talked about, was going on college tours, and he wanted to go see UCF because we live in Florida. And so he wanted to go to Central Florida and look at UCF. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, like, let's go do that. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that's no problem. Not thinking that I can't go, 25 feet from my front door to the car without, being out of breath. And I'm trying to make it through this college tour, and I'm having to take breaks every 10, 15, 20 steps because I just can't do it. It's in the middle of the summertime. It's Florida. It's not cool by any means. So and I'm struggling to the point that I legit thought I was going to pass out or worse. And I knew, I'm like, none of these people can either, you guys can't even help me up if I fall down. So I'm in a big problem here. So we get to the point where we were inside looking at the dorms, and I've realized we're not even a quarter of the way done with this tour, and I can't. Like, I'm soaking wet, sweating, just feeling horrible, like seeing black spots, knowing I wasn't going to make it much farther. And so it was air conditioned inside the dorms. They were like, sit on this couch, don't move. We're going to finish the rest of the tour, and we'll come back for you later. And I was crushed because my whole identity at that point was being a father to my kids, who I love to death. And how do I explain the fact that I can't even do something simple like this? And he was so excited for this weekend. And in my mind, I'm like, not only have I let him down, let the family down, I've ruined the whole trip. Like, how could I do this? And it was directly after that and having that conversation with my primary care doctor that I went ahead and signed up to get this done, because there was no way I was missing out on the rest of his life. And I think back to all the things that I didn't do or couldn't do for him that I wanted to. And I just, I felt like I had robbed him of so much that now, as he's older, there's any chance I get to do anything with him or for him, I'm all in, because I know I missed that time.
Dang.
Yeah.
And my surgery, I was one of the very, very fortunate people to not have any issues post-op. I had my surgery and I was gone the next morning. Kind of like Nat, I spent a little over 24 hours in the hospital just because it took them so long to process my exit paperwork. But I was the only reason I took 6 days off of work was because 2 of those days were already my regular days off. So I was back at work. I mean, I push papers. I am in no way a manual labor guy at this point in my life. But I had a very simple kind of breeze through it. So I was fortunate in that way.
Nice. I had a trip. I took a trip with my family. We went to, again, we live in Texas. We went to Virginia. I got a bunch of family in Virginia, and we went on a, I don't want to compare apples to oranges here, but we went on a trip, and we went to, I can't remember the name of it, but it was one of those theme parks. They got roller coasters and stuff. And I went to go first thing we did, everybody went to hit the roller coasters, and they were the big people chairs are in these rows. And I was like, well, I'll just go get in those rows. And I got in the fat people, the chairs that are, for plus size folks. And I went and got in it, and that shit wasn't about to clip close. And I was like, oh man. And I didn't even, the rest of the day, I was like, no, y'all go. I'm just going to kick it back here. I'm good. My wife was it bummed her out so bad. She felt so bad for me. And I was trying to be, no, it's cool. It's fine. And really, honestly, it was fine. Roller coasters are fun. Don't get me wrong, dude. Major, what do they call it? Non-scale victory.
Yeah.
Getting on a roller coaster, bro, that shit's super fun. But at the same time, not getting on a roller coaster is not that big of a deal. But just knowing that you've gotten to a place where you can't even get in the big people seats, it's that's what's in your head, Anyway, yeah, I too, man, like I had a very easy, it was very easy. So like one of the big things that I hear about from people a lot is that they have to do all this like dieting and stuff going up to it because of insurance or whatever. That whole insurance thing with this is ridiculous. And I had health insurance, but I was like, fuck all that. I figured out a way to self-pay. I just borrowed a little bit of money instead of going through insurance, and I figured I'll pay because the insurance, like the hoops they make you jump through. So I was self-pay, and my surgeon was like, "Yeah, just like eat vaguely keto for like a week before." And I was like, "That's it?" He's like, "Yeah." So went in and did this. I was in and out of the hospital though in like 4 hours. Like I went in, I was like, and that was like why I was asking you how long you were in the hospital for in Mexico, because like, looking on like Reddit and stuff, that seems to be like a pretty common experience. Like you go in, they're like, get them in there, get them under the knife, get them the fuck out before like, they need any more medication. I came home and like my blood pressure that night like went so crazy. I don't even remember what it was, but it was like scary high. And my surgeon had given me his number and he was like, call me if you need anything. So I called him and I was like, yeah, my blood pressure is like crazy high. And I told him and he was like, whoa, that's really high. But I'm not like that kind of doctor. You just need to go to the ER. So like went to the ER and they gave me like some blood pressure medication. And I, yeah, and that was pretty much it. That was the last time I saw my surgeon, or the last time I ever talked to him. I like had some follow-up visits, but he didn't show up to any of them. And I would go to the office and sit there for like 2 hours waiting for him, and just like, and he called me a couple times and he felt bad because he was like, sorry, I got really busy, but he like called me and like left me some voicemails, but I was like, you know what, like I'll figure it out. So
Damn, I thought my aftercare sucked. I take it back. Like I'm gonna stop saying that because Jesus.
yeah, I was shocked, man. Like when they were like, yeah, they were like, you're just gonna go home now. I was like, really? Like I can't hardly stand up.
You got the drive-through sleeve.
Dude, totally. Like it was all about the anesthesia, like I was fucked up, and I'm like still like, coming off of anesthesia, you get real goofy, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's it then. See you guys later. I'm still like, like, whoa, lady, your hair is beautiful. And she's like, go, get out. I hope you got a ride.
Oh my
God, that's wild.
But I mean, I consider myself very fortunate. So I was like just shy of 400 pounds when I went in for the surgery. So I've lost like 220-ish pounds. And I've managed to, like, I was at, and go, like, good problem to have, right? Like I kind of started getting a little concerned that I was losing, like I like my goal weight is like now currently like 30 pounds ago. So I'm now like trying to inch it back up a little bit, which is, if you'd have told me, that I'd ever be like, I think I need to put a few pounds on, I'd have told you were nuts. But it's like,
If they ever told you that you were one of those people having problems gaining weight, you'd be like, yeah, not me.
Yeah, no, never. That movie, that Stephen King book, Thinner.
Thinner.
Yes. They made a really terrible movie out of it. Yes. I read that book when I was a kid, and then I saw the movie as an adult. And I was like, I remember thinking like, golly, like this guy's so lucky. He just eat whatever he wants, and he's just wasting away. I remember thinking like, I would take like being thin for 2 months at the end of my life, knowing that I would get 2 months as a thin person.
Yeah.
But
well, Chris, what is one thing that you'd like to leave our listeners with, whether it's about, body positivity, whether it's about bariatric surgery? What is one like message you just want to make sure that folks hear?
Well, I've got two, and one is like my standard answer to this question, no matter what the topic is, and the other one is relative to this topic. So I would say this about sort of like the world of bariatrics, and if there are people out there who are thinking about doing it, who haven't taken the plunge yet, You'll hear, I think, when you ask folks about this, the most common thing is that people just say like, "Oh, I wish I had done it sooner." Good results, and it's a medical intervention that we engage in when we've chosen to love ourselves, and that loving yourself is okay. Loving yourself as you are is okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being a bigger person, but I will say that there is, I think, some misguided messaging out in the world right now that would lead you to believe that it is possible to be and to remain healthy at any size. And I think that that's just not true. Body positivity aside, love yourself, love the skin you're in. You can be very big, and you can be very beautiful, and that is all very true. I again went into this primarily for health reasons, with quality of life as a secondary thing, and with sort of vanity as a tertiary thing. But I did not ever expect the level of improvement in quality of life that I got. It's profound and wonderful, and being able to move your body in ways that you maybe didn't ever think that you might be able to is rewarding in a big ways. And so the joy of movement is a really important piece of it. So this is not to say that that someone can't be big and still be healthy. There's plenty of people out there who've got a few extra pounds who are very healthy, ton of them. But if we are suffering from the disease of obesity, that disease is very, 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 very likely to be the thing that kills you. And that's unfortunate. And I know that, it's coming from a place of privilege to say that this is an answer, because I know that not everybody can afford it. Not everybody has access to insurance that's gonna take care of it. And even when you do have insurance, that insurance, those steps, those hoops, they can seem very, very daunting going into it. But it's the best decision, one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. So if you're somebody out there thinking about it, I'm sure that people, you have guests to talk about that all the time. So I don't mean to throw around cliches, but it's come on in, man. The water is fine. Yeah. The other thing that I try to make my message to the world anytime I talk about anything, and this is kind of out of left field, but I run a homelessness service organization, and we deal with a lot of folks who have a lot of sort of like the behavioral health issues that we talked about a little bit, and who are very marginalized. And it's a difficult field to work in, but it's also really rewarding. And I was not, I didn't go to college to run a business or to run a nonprofit or for social work or for anything like that. What I've done with my life has been following my heart and trying to live by the motto of putting one foot in front of the other and doing the next right thing, even if the next right thing is hard. And I, have created I founded and have built an organization that has had a tremendous impact on the world. And that's not all me. I've got a really big staff, and they do a lot of the heavy lifting. And but what I want people to know about the kind of work that I do is that you don't need to ask anybody's permission to do it. You don't need to get a license to do good in the world. that there's plenty of problems out there that need to be solved, and it's going to take all kinds of people to solve them. Homelessness is kind of what is the problem that I'm working to solve, but homelessness is interesting in the fact that it exists at the intersection of a great many societal ills. And so we kind of are always working to solve a lot of different types of problems for a lot of different types of people. And all it really takes a lot of time to solve big problems is a drive to do what's right, and just love and loving people and showing them unconditional positive regard no matter what. We're going to solve an awful lot of problems that we have around us with just a little bit of love and understanding. And the point here is to say, I've had to do a lot of therapy and do a lot of work on myself to be able to acknowledge the actual impact that I've had on the world. And when I step back and look at the impact that I've had on the world by way of the organization that I founded and now run, it's pretty amazing. The work is beautiful and rewarding, but I did it only by believing that I could, and by putting one foot in front of the other and doing the next right thing every time the opportunity to do the right thing presented itself. So that's my message, man. Anybody can do this. Anybody can become successful in whatever it is that they choose to, get to loving yourself. Once you've gotten there, loving on others is really the way that we're all going to change the world and get out of this god awful shitty mess we found ourselves in.
Hell yeah. Yep, I agree. That's why Jason, April, and I created BariNation. We saw that problem and nose to the grind, and we're here trying to spread the love for everyone who did not have a good bariatric experience.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome when you start really looking at it, all the things that you can do. Pretty rad.
Yeah, it's great.
Chris, where can people find you?
So you can find the work that I do is on all socials at TooFound, TOO Found. So that's like you search that on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. It's TOO Found. It's short for The Other Ones Foundation, TooFound, or toofound.org is for all things website. My personal stuff, I'm at _ain't_Christopher on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time online. And I'm here in Austin, man. It's not hard to find me. We're in the process of building a big 200-unit emergency housing complex in Southeast Austin called the Esperanza Community. And the doors are always open. So we get surprise visits from people all the time. So if you're in the Austin area and you want to stop by, just go punch Esperanza Community into your GPS and it'll bring you to our front door. We'll introduce you to some of the most amazing, interesting, and resilient people you've ever met in your life.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to be kind of in your neck of the woods in November because there's a bariatric retreat happening. So we may have to talk to you about seeing if you can make a visit there.
Oh, hell yeah. In Austin?
No, it's going to be in San Antonio, but it's not too far from you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Yeah. Send me the deets, baby.
We'll talk more about that.
Cool.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you spending some time with us to kind of talk about your story and give us all your information. And we can't thank you enough. And to the community, we thank you guys for supporting us in the ways that you have been all the time, whether it's likes, the shares, the subscribes, giving us the ratings on the reviews and all the things. We couldn't do what we do without you guys. You guys help us tenfold from what we could ever do for you all. The support's amazing. And just remember, at the end of the day, you've got this, we've got you, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.